What's up, guys? On this episode of Scars and Stripes, we got another American hero, Matthew Bradford. Matthew Bradford is a U.S. Marine who was motivated to go overseas after the horrible act on 9/11. During Matt's time in Iraq, he stepped on an IED, losing both of his legs and vision in both of his eyes. Despite Matt's injuries to this day, he's still working out, he's still active, he still runs, he does everything that he would do in a normal life, and his positive attitude is really motivating. On this episode, Matt goes in full detail on how it's like to live blind and without his legs. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. So on this episode of Scars and Stripes, we got U.S. Marine Matthew Bradford, born in Winchester, Kentucky. For those who don't know, Matthew was deployed in 2007. Is that when you were deployed?
2006.
2006. And in 2007, Matthew was injured stepping on an IED, which led him to numerous injuries that we will get into later. And I really appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So I usually like to start with all the guests, just basic information, man. Where you from? How'd you grow up? The town you're from? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I was born in Virginia. My parents were divorced, but I grew up here in Kentucky. It's where I live today, and then I lived in Winchester all the way up until right after my ninth grade year in high school, and then I moved to live back with my dad in Virginia, and then basically from my sophomore year to senior years when I was in Virginia, and then I did the MEPS. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in Virginia and stuff, and it's so long story. Like I grew up in either Virginia or Kentucky. It's my home, both of those places, and like I always tell people, because I was up back in Virginia just last month, that although I live in Kentucky today, Dinwiddie, Virginia is my true home. Like I love it there, and I love the community, I love the people, and but I grew up like any other kid, kind of just. I didn't grow up with any cell phones or any social media. I was pretty much outdoors. I played sports, and the friends in the neighborhood, like we would just, we'd play whatever, pick up basketball, football, baseball, whatever the sport of the day was, season, we'd be doing it, very active as a kid. So,
And you went to high school in Virginia or Kentucky?
both. I went to my freshman year here in Kentucky and my sophomore through senior year in Virginia.
Gotcha. And you have both your parents were in the household, mom, dad?
Divorce. Yeah, my dad lived in
Divorce.
Virginia. He worked at Fort Lee, and that's why he kind of their headquarters is based in Fort Lee, and that's where he ended up there because he's actually from here in Kentucky as well. So I kind of went through some issues, with grades. Wasn't very good. My mother was going through her own problems, and my grandmother stepped in and called my dad and says he needs to get out of here and come live with you because there was no good direction. There was no stability, and looking back, like if it wasn't for her calling my dad, then I don't know what road I would have chose because, like there was a lot of my older brother was having his friends over, they were partying, they were doing drugs, drinking, and my mom had her own issues, so it was like there wasn't much stability going on, and it was a good thing my dad stepped in at the time.
So growing up, would you say you were close with both your parents in different ways, or did you gravitate to more mom or dad?
Uh, I gravitated towards my mother because I lived with her all the time. I'd go see my dad, the holidays, spring break, summer. It just, my dad did everything he could to make it, to make me enjoy coming to visit. My dad was a business guy. He didn't, but I love the sports. But my dad would go above and beyond to take me to baseball games to involve himself as much as possible. And like uh, again, just like looking back, like I'm thankful my dad stepped up and wanted me to come live with him because I remember when he told me that he took me there for a summer vacation and was like, Matt, you're staying here to live with me. And I was a rising sophomore. I had my friends and I had my life in Kentucky. Like I didn't know anyone in Virginia. I didn't want to live in Virginia. Like my home was in Kentucky, and I was so upset. But looking back, it was a blessing. And it was those 3 years I lived in Virginia. It was amazing because not only did I walk away with a soon to be future, and but I also walked away with a lot of good friends, a great community that, we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, but that community was there for me when I needed them the most, and they're still there for me today, even though it's been almost 20 years now.
Did you grow up religious at all? Was there any
Uh,
religion in the household?
it was every now and then I'd go with my granny to church. That was kind of about the only faith base that we had growing up. But yeah, just not really. No, it was just we would do the family get-togethers, for the religious holidays, and I would occasionally go to church with my granny.
Right, so nothing too extreme growing up.
No, no.
Did you come from a military family? Was dad military, grandparents, like anything like that?
It's amazing because people always ask me, "Is like, do you think it was just like you were destined for the military?" And for me, like, the reason why I joined the military was because of 9/11. But my dad was in the Air Force. My uncle was in Vietnam. Both my grandparents. So it was all in the military. It was just maybe it was just destined for me to join the military because of of my family members.
So in high school, who was bad in high school? Were you the quiet kid, the obnoxious kid? Were you popular, partying? Were you to yourself? Who was Matthew in high school?
I was I had I don't. The one thing I love about when I moved to Virginia is like it didn't matter if you were, you know, the country folk, the black guys or girls, like the popular skaters, like everybody tended to get along, and so like I played football, I grew up, I was playing basketball too, so I kind of fell into the a bunch of different crowds, and like I didn't party, like I don't think I might have had like a couple of drinks of beer, but like I think when I first really started drinking was when I was in the Marine Corps. So it's like, for us to go out, it'd be a group of guys and we'd go to the mall or we'd go to whatever, like if there was a basketball or a football game going on. That was about the extent of going out. We'd go to the park and play basketball. It was just like there was no like just going to party. It was just like I loved high school, the social life of it all. But yeah, it was a yeah, like looking back on it, I wouldn't change a thing, and it's those 3 years in Virginia that I met a lot of really good friends there, and they welcomed the Kentucky boy in, and I left there in a good place. So
So you prefer Virginia high school over Kentucky high school? You
I
like your
did
time in
because
Virginia?
I did. I went to my freshman year in high school in Kentucky, but I just think like I still have some good friends that live in Kentucky, but it was just when I moved to Virginia, I just the community part of it, is I grew up like my family was, like I mentioned earlier, like we'd get together for holidays, but it was a lot of we just always had family time, and once I got to Virginia and I got around a good group of friends, like I felt like that, and I really felt like that when I got injured later on.
So growing up, with the military family, what was it like in that family? What was military for you growing up? Was it a big influence throughout the household? Was it celebrated all the time? Was it quiet? Did you hear stories? How was their backgrounds with you growing up?
I know. So like when I always tell people like I learned a lot about life just from I divorced parents. My mom loved her to death, but she was more of your paycheck to paycheck, and I learned to appreciate and be more grateful for the things that she gave me because I didn't expect a lot of gifts for Christmas. I didn't expect these big fancy meals or nice clothes, but I just learned to appreciate that she's working her butt off and she's going to provide me with anything that she can. And then when I moved to live with my dad, like I understood the whole point of if I want something, I have to go work for it. My dad grew up on a farm, so the work ethic that he provided me, and not the self pity, like I want to give you everything, spoil me. If I wanted this item, I'm going to have to go work for it. I'm going to have to find a way to get money through getting a job and working my butt off to get there. And so I think just growing up, both those parts of my life and those lessons, it helped out a lot. And then, when I was living in Virginia, like we literally lived 15 minutes from Fort Lee. My dad worked on Fort Lee all the time, so going to the mall, you'd see the soldiers in their uniforms. You'd go to the base, you'd see the military. Like we spent a lot of time shopping because my dad worked for the commissaries, so we spent a lot of time shopping at the commissaries and then the PX. And really since 9/11, before 9/11, I didn't really wasn't really familiar with the military or any of this stuff. But after 9/11, I really started focusing on like, this is what I want to do. I feel like this is my purpose in life because our country was attacked, and this is a country that, I had a, looking back, I had a pretty good childhood no matter what. It's a and this is where I live, and I love this country and what it stands for, and what that flag represents and symbolizes.
So, what grade were you in during 9/11? How
I,
old were
I,
you?
was,
What grade were you in?
I was in ninth grade, so I think I just turned 16.
And do you remember where you were in that moment?
I was in high school in Kentucky. I was actually in between my first period and second period class, and my first period was in it was a VOTEC vocational, and it was out back, so I had to basically walk outside to go to the main campus, the main building, and that's when my friend told me that. And in Winchester, like where Winchester, Kentucky was, we're not too far from the Bluegrass Depot to where a lot of old gases and mustard gases was, that's where they're housed. So a few schools in this area actually shut down for the day. But when I was in school, all I heard was, the first plane hitting the twin towers, and everybody believing that it was you know, the pilot error and all this stuff. And we didn't have any TVs on, so it was kind of just a. I didn't find anything else more about what happened that day until I got home. And when you get off the school bus and like there's really no kids wanting to go play, like you just kind of walk in the house and like on every news channel you see both planes going into the buildings, the Pentagon and the Pennsylvania. It was just you didn't know what was going on in this world.
So when you get home that day, you're still living with mom, or are you with dad at this point?
I was with my mom. Yeah.
So when does Matt have an idea of, like, in ninth grade, do you have an idea of what's really going on once you put on the TVs and you're still in high school, you're pretty young. Like, do you have a real idea of what just happened, like the magnitude of what happened? Like our parents obviously knew. Did you have that idea watching the news?
I didn't, but it's like even today, like images of like I remember watching the news and seeing people leap from the buildings, 80, 90 stories up. And it was just trying to as a young 16-year-old trying to like what is going on, I think just like everyone else in the country was just like you don't expect this to happen to your country, and I think that's what surprised a lot of us. And it's just sitting around the table or sitting around the TV watching like this stuff, trying to figure out like, are we going to war? Who are we going to war with? Like who flew those planes into those buildings? What's going on?
Do you remember the first conversation you had with your father regarding 9/11 at that age? And what was
No,
his reaction towards what had happened?
I don't, not really my father because, um, like once 9/11 happened, I didn't see my dad probably for another couple of months because I didn't, it was probably either Thanksgiving or Christmas when I went to go see him. But just just the fact of like I remember, by the time I moved to live with my dad in Virginia, I was at the mindset to where I wanted to join the military and I wanted to go fight. And it's like a couple of months after 9/11, Black Hawk Down came out, and that became one of my favorite movies. And I'm like, well, I want to be an Army Ranger. And then by this time I moved to live with my dad, and he was in the Air Force, so I went to go meet with the Air Force recruiter, and I wanted to go to war. Like I looked at their like special tactic units and stuff, but the pipeline was so long, I didn't want to go through training and actually miss the war. And then I had a couple of classmates in Virginia that joined the Marine Corps through the delayed entry program, and they started kind of like inviting me to their pulley functions at the recruiting stations, and I started meeting some of the recruiters, and that's when I kind of got the idea of wanting to join the Marines.
So, how old were you from the point of 9/11 to the point of signing with the Marines? How long in between that time?
Like 2 years, because I turned 18 right before my senior year in high school, and by that time I could sign my own paperwork to go into the delayed entry program. I didn't need parental signatures, but even before I turned 18, I was already going to like their functions, to the pulley functions. When you got a bunch of guys that want to join the Marines, they still put them through training every month on how to run a PFT and work on their timing. And you kind of do this training all the way up until you ship out. So but yeah, 18. I turned 18 right before my senior year in high school. In December of 2004 is when I went through the MEPS and actually did all my paperwork, signed up, got the date for boot camp. All I needed to do was provide my recruiter my diploma, and then I was on my way. So it was like December of '04. I was still a senior in high school, but I got the date of September 6th, 2005 to go off to boot camp recruit training.
So you knew after 9/11 you were fixated with joining one of the branches of the military, and you were just hung up on you were going to the military. You wanted to fight this war. I mean, you joined almost 4 years later, right? 2005, four
Yeah,
years
yeah.
later. So you know, a lot of people we know joined the army right after 9/11. They wanted to fight, they wanted payback. But in that spur of the moment, people say a lot of things like, the New Year's, I want to go to the gym more, and then time goes by and you don't go to the gym. But you were pretty fixated on it really bothered you, it seems like 9/11 that you kept to your word and you really wanted to go to war.
I just I just love this country, and it just felt like it was my time. It was my purpose in life to do this, and I didn't really focus on. Again, I was like a social kid in high school. Like it wasn't about the grades. It wasn't about going off to college. Like, so like all I knew what I needed to do was provide my diploma to the recruiter, and I'd be on my way to what I wanted to do. And it was, I think that's the most important part. You know, I'm sure my dad had his hesitations. Actually, the day that I signed up through the MEP station, December of '04, was only a couple of weeks after the Battle of Fallujah. A lot of deaths, a lot of wounded. And I remember staying in my room at my dad's house, just told him that I chose infantry because I wanted to go fight and I knew infantry would go right over. And he was like, he looked at me, and we had one of those dad son conversations. My dad didn't, wasn't too high on the war in Iraq, but he knew that's what I wanted to do, and it's like, he might have had his thoughts and his uncertainties about it all, but he never pushed it on me. He was always there to support me no matter what decision I made. And looking back on it, it was one of the best decisions for sure.
How did your mother take it when you told her this? Because when you joined the Marines, I mean, it's a little different nowadays because back then you knew, we were fresh in a war, it
Hmm.
was go time. Now, it's quiet. How did your mom know, knowing that you're signing up to the Marines and you're going to go to Iraq, Afghanistan, because there is a war? But did she have any idea you were doing this, or did you kind of?
Well, it was, the funny thing, like it was so different back then. This is '04. Like you didn't really have like Facebook or social media that I just joined the Marines, or like you actually had a landline phone. And it's like, so like, I'm sure I told my mom I joined the military, I joined the Marines or whatever like that, as just a mother concern. But like, I don't know if we ever really had those conversations. And it's, and really, and, but again, I was a high school student, it's like calling home or calling to my mom wasn't as much as, you know, I was a kid. And then, I went off, and, she was there at my graduation. I went to go spend a couple of weeks with her because she lived in Wisconsin at this time after I graduated high school. And then by that time, I was coming back to Virginia, and I was getting ready to go off to recruit training. And it was, I just don't, I don't know if she thought um, what she thought, in her head, but again, she never expressed it either.
So when's the date you go to boot camp? Or
Uh,
not
Sep-
the
September 6th of 2005 is
December
when
6, 2005.
yeah.
How did boot camp go for you? Was it what you expected? Not expected? Was it more, harder, easier? How was it for you?
Um, it was. I remember going to the recruiting station before we left, and they had the videos. I don't know what channel. It might have been like National Geographic or whatever, but they had cameras like filming Marine Corps recruit training. So, and then one of our recruiting pulley functions at Fort Lee, there's like 5 or 6 different recruiting stations brought their pulleys over, and then so they had drill instructors that would come up. So it was like these drill instructors just running around screaming at us, and so I knew what to expect when I got there. The physical part of it wasn't hard. It was more of the getting screamed at, and then like once you kind of learn that things settle down a little bit, like we're all going to get yelled at, we're all going to get screamed at. It's just you just got to come and you got to get used to it, and then realizing that 13 weeks goes by so fast because they keep you so busy. It's always something every day, from the time you get up out of the racks to the time you go to bed. It's just, and, before you know it, it's like you're walking across the parade deck and getting ready to see your parents for the first time and, receive your Eagle Globe anchor. But, it was just the fact that, they were doing everything they could to remove a high school civilians or whoever and take you down to your lowest level ever, make you feel like, dirt is more important than you. And then they're going to bring you back up as a Marine. And, it's, 13 weeks of that. It was something, that's for sure.
Do you think the program and the boot camp, in your opinion, is it perfect? Is it making perfect Marines? Do you see any things that should be changed that you would change? Or do you think it was perfect for you and how you
I
are
think,
today?
I think it was perfect because, you know, it's hard like I think to answer that question because like I know, um, like looking back on it now and when I go speak to Marines and like I know they had the whole brotherhood, the cliche and all this stuff. We build, you're a family now, the camaraderie. And it's like, for a lot of us, it's like you didn't really know the importance of it. But now looking back on it, I mean, it's everything. It's um, it's more than just a recruiting pitch. The Marine Corps mantra, when you get around people, people know a difference between a Marine and a soldier. And it's just, and that's just one thing right there. When people call me a soldier, it's like, or they call any Marine a soldier, it's like, no, 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 we're Marines. Like, we're proud of that title, because we earned that Eagle Low banker, and they always say it's earned, not given. And it's just, you walk differently, you talk differently, you have your shoulders back. It's just, it's something that you're proud of, and not to mention you get to take that title with you for the rest of your life to your grave.
And in your opinion, that you just made that point, for viewers, what is, in your opinion, the difference between a soldier and a Marine?
A soldier's army and a marine's a marine. And it's just the rivalry behind it all. It's like I respect every branch. Like, we have the jokes, the stuff that we'll throw at each other, but it's just the one thing that I love about the Marine Corps is like I love history, and the Marine Corps, like they pride themselves on history. Like, if you don't answer a question correctly about, when was the Marine Corps founded or where was it founded, then you will go to the sand pit or you will get down, or you go to the quarter deck. It's just the Marine Corps is so proud of its history, from its uniforms to how it fights to its tactics and its strategies. It's all about the history of the Marine Corps, and that's what makes the Marines who they are. And that's why you go back to the Germans calling the Marines fighting like a bunch of devil dogs, in World War One, and the Marine Corps fighting through the Pacific against the Japanese. And it's just the brotherhood. Going back to one of my favorite books I've ever read was We Were One Shoulder to Shoulder with the Marines that fought in Fallujah, and willing to die for the Marine to your left and right. It's just that love we have of each other for each other.
And when you started boot camp and when you graduated, you're about 18 years old.
I just turned 19 before I went off to boot camp.
So with
Of
after everything you know now, everything you've been through, do you think 18 or 19 should be too young to join the military, or do you think it's a perfect age? Because there's always that argument, you're not even allowed to drink alcohol in this country, but you could have a rifle and go fight in war, but you can't go and buy a beer. So in your opinion, do you think the age at 18 is sufficient enough to join the military, or do you think they're not smart enough to know what they're doing?
I think it's great age to go join. And honestly, I wish like we would make it some way differently to where more kids can join because yeah, it's not so much that you're going to go to war just because you join the military. It's the discipline, the leadership, the lessons that you're taught, while you're wearing the uniform. And no matter if you serve 4 years or 20 years or 35 years, it's like those lessons and that leadership sticks with you for the rest of your life, those disciplines. And, we, sadly, I think we need a lot more of that in this country today, and it's like, I don't want to get into politics, but it's like, I just feel like we need more
Yep.
strong leaders, more disciplined leaders out there. And, and it's always when I talk to veterans or when I talk to the military, it's like, if you're going to get out, then get out and be a good Samaritan to your community. Take what you learned here and use it in life and use it to serve others and to give back because it's truly important and we need that right now. Not only to like just not only to people older than us, but to the kids that come up. And I go back to my high school football team. I'm the leadership coach, and they're in Virginia and I'm in Kentucky, but we'll do leadership meetings through Zoom. And that's the one thing I always tell them. It's like leadership is so important on the field, but it's even more important off the field. What kind of person, what kind of character can you be? And it's just talking to these kids and the head football coach in Virginia, he's not military, but he's very military oriented. He's very hard. He's one of those hardcore leaders, but those players will do anything they can for him because they know he has his back, their back.
I agree with everything you just said cold-heartedly. I think you were spot on the money on everything. I know we could go into politics, but that's a whole nother issue. That's a whole nother episode. So,
Yeah.
but we're on the same page with the politics. So you graduate boot camp. When you get the call that you're getting deployed, how long after that?
So I graduated December of 2005, and then January went on to School of Infantry, North Carolina, and then graduated from that in March. And that's when I got the assignment that I was going to go to Second Battalion, Third Marines in Hawaii, and which is amazing because like an East Coast Marine, which I was, like you're typically going to be stationed on the East Coast. So I didn't want to be stationed at Camp Lejeune, but I kind of knew that it was going to happen. And then getting the assignment that like, oh well, y'all are going to be signed to Second Battalion, Third Marines in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii, and it's like, holy smokes, we're going to Hawaii. Like country boy from Kentucky, Virginia is moving to the islands. And but once we got there, Second Battalion 2-3 just got back from Afghanistan. And at that the pace that the Marine Corps was at during 2006, it was deploy, redeploy, train up. I mean, it was just 7 months on, 7 months off. And so by the time I got to the fleet in Hawaii, like we started to work up to be deployed because we didn't know at that time if we were going to Iraq or Afghanistan. And I think it was kind of more closer to the summertime, closer to August is when we really found out that we were going to Iraq, because it was you start hearing some rumblings about the unit that we're going to relieve and what they're facing and what they're dealing with. And then the end of August came around, we went on pre-deployment leave. And literally a year after I joined the Marine Corps, September of 2006, I was on a plane headed to Kuwait on into Iraq.
So at this point, they were obviously both worse. Was Iraq or Afghanistan worse than the other at this point? Like, did you hear more
I think
stories in Afghanistan or more stories in Iraq?
I think by this time the war shifted back to Iraq, and and this is when the whole President Bush and the surge of troops, and they're really trying to push through right there because the Al Anbar province was really dangerous. It was probably at the time one of the most dangerous provinces in the world, from Fallujah to Ramadi, and on up to Syria, to where now foreign fighters, as they called them, was jumping across the border to fight. And so it was really rough at that time. And when we were in Al Assad, like one of the unit that we relieved, 3-3, was one of the Marines walked up to us and said they felt bad for what we were getting involved in. That battalion lost 14 Marines on their deployment. And you hear that, and you start hearing, again, some rumblings from our advanced party that, is up in Haditha, where we were headed already, that firefight just to get on the fob, and it was just mortared. And like, so you're kind of like, you're getting ready for it, and it was just.
So when you're hearing this and you know you're going and you hear a fellow Marine tell you, I feel bad for you guys, and you know they lost 14 men, and you in your unit's head, is it like, oh fuck? Or is it you're so locked in, you're a Marine and you're going to fight? Or as a human, is there any part of you that's like, you know, this could be it for you?
I was
Or is it
locked
just business?
in business, locked in. It's like you go through the training, and it's like, this is what I wanted to do. And now I'm like kind of living it out. And a lot of, like, some of me was still like, wow, like here I am sitting over here in the Middle East, in Iraq, and just, a year and a half ago I was graduating high school, sitting on the high school football field, wondering what my life was going to be like, because I knew once I put that uniform on, it was going to be different, it was going to be changed. And now here I am sitting in Iraq, and as a United States Marine, but it was just, I trusted the guys, I trusted my leaders to get me out of there. I was motivated. I wasn't afraid. Like, I told myself that I was either going to come over there and fight and come home with my brothers, or not come home at all. Like, I was willing to sacrifice it all because of this country, because I love this country. And and we geared up. We went on into Haditha, and I was in Echo Company. Echo Company was the main element of the battalion. So Haditha was the most dangerous city. It was the main element of the city, and that's where they put us. And on average, the first 40 days, we averaged a casualty a day. So it was tough at first. You always actually got the video from the Green Day song "Wake Me Up When September Ends." And I just remember, like, the first 3 months that we were in Iraq. I mean, from September, October, November, it was just like, those 3 months were just horrendous. Like, we faced it every day over and over again. And it's like, you wondered when the guy next to you, on patrol, is like, is he going to make it back? Am I going to make it back? Or, is this our last day on this earth? It's like you had those thoughts in your head, but you just kept pushing on, pushing forward.
And what exactly did you guys have a mission at this point? I spoke to, Dakota Meyer, and their mission was to help, the people in Afghanistan and Iraq to, you know, learn their, I guess, their military, build their military up. Was that similar to what your mission was? Was it different than that? You just patrolling?
Yeah, we were on foot patrol a majority of the time, and a lot of the guys that got wounded in our company was in mobile units. So it's like I actually felt safer walking the streets. But we were at the process of building up their police force, and honestly, kind of having those meet and greets with the leadership of the town, the citizens, to let them, because they're scared to talk to us, because they think if they are seen communicating with the Americans, then they're going to get killed, or their family's going to get killed. So it's like trying to build up their trust to where, all right, now we can go to them and they could point out the bad guys, and we can go kill the bad guys, or go, you know, arrest the bad guys, and so it's like it was building trust with the leaders of the town leaders, and then also building the police force up, and you know pushing out the insurgency, and letting these that means the citizens of Haditha live in a free town, in a free city, to where they're not worried about or insurgents coming through and, you know, beheading them and killing them.
Right, and I think that's a big misconception that, the media and, things play out is p people think that everybody in Afghanistan and Iraq is bad. There
Exactly.
is normal people there, there is, good people there that who are just stuck in, bad situations, and I think, people need to realize, not everyone in those countries were bad at
And
that time.
and a lot of those people in those towns, they wanted us there. They felt safe with us there. They could actually live a normal life with us there. And
Yeah,
we're not
and you
in there.
look at stories, like Marcus Luttrell, who was, saved by, a villager who didn't come from America, and he saved his life.
Yeah, yeah, and then that whole tribe, that was their like whatever, I forgot what it is, but like one of their priorities, if they have somebody that comes into their community or their tribe, then they protect them with everything they have. And it's just, yeah, it
So
was. I will say though, like couple, once I got, a couple months later and stuff like that. Once I got back to the United States, it's like it was hard to watch the news because of, like, I saw what Iraq was like, and I saw it firsthand, and then you hear the stories on the news, and it's like that's not true, and it's so.
so what was the everyday waking up in Iraq? Is it constant? Do you remember your first gunfight that you were heavily involved in?
Yeah, it was like so our fob was in the middle of town. We got mortared every day. Like it was the first time we went on patrol out in the palm groves, which is like this vegetation palm tree area near the river, Euphrates River. It was, we were patrolling, and next thing you know, to our left, they open up on us on, getting shot at and stuff. And that was our first firefight, and it was amazing because I was a point man, and my team leaders were behind me, and him and I jumped behind, the same tree that was probably, I don't know, the diameter of a softball. Like, it wasn't very big at all. And he looked at me and says, Bradford, go get behind this other tree, which was probably half the size that we were behind. It's like, and I remember looking at him like, you've lost your mind. Like, but it's like, it's probably not a similar comparison, but it's like when you're playing football and you get hit that first time and you're like, okay, let's go. That's kind of how I compare getting shot at for the first time, because it's like, after a while you get shot at so many times, you kind of get used to it, and it's, people talk about, like, you see in movies or whatever, it's like how fast a firefight is, which is like, to me, like when we're in a firefight or we're getting shot at, it's like everything just slowed down, and you learn, like, everything that you learned in training comes back to you. It's like, all right, I'm getting shot at. What do I need to do first? It's not like run around with your head cut off. Get cover, get concealed, get behind, like find out where your target is. Make sure you're good. Make sure the guys to your left and behind you are good. And it's all that stuff goes on within like seconds of being shot at.
So for viewers, paint the picture in Iraq. Are they shooting from above? Are you in a small like city like? Or is it the mountains?
Yeah, it
'Cause
was a yeah, city blocks, so like, pop around the corner, spray a couple of rounds, or they might shoot from a car. And then, we had a lot of snipers in the town that we were. And I don't know if you remember back in 2001, the DC sniper, where they would shoot out of the tail light and keep driving. We had a sniper that did the same thing in Iraq that actually took the lives of a couple of Marines, wounded a few others. So thankfully, we got him. But it's like, so we had to deal with that. A lot of moving targets, and it was just, yeah. It was you had your head on looking around all over the place because you didn't know where they're going to pop out or where they're going to be at. And when you get to the certain parts of the town, like Market Street, Boardwalk, the palm groves near the Euphrates River, you automatically turn your weapon from safety to fire because you knew that this is where it's going to go down. And you start observing the street, and when you turn down the street and nobody's on that road, then like, all right, we're getting ready to get into a firefight again right here, because Like, where's the people who live in the town? Why aren't they walking the streets? And so you start observing and noticing things that are going on.
What would you say surprised you the most about the Taliban or the people you're fighting against? Did anything surprise you? Or like, were they better than you thought? Were they faster? Were they slower? Were they dumber? Like, what did you take? Did you take anything from it? Was it what you expected?
I think the pace that they had us going over there, it was just like so fast. Like sitting back and thinking about all that stuff, it's like it was very difficult. Like, we knew what we needed to do. We knew what kind of mission we were going on. If it was an ID mission, if it was a like a meet and greet mission, like we were so dead set focused on what was going on. And and it was like if something did hit the fan, then you know how to react to it. And it's not to get so stressed out and so like um out of your element. It's like those chaotic situations. We were trained on it. And like looking back to those days in recruit training when they're screaming at you and you're running around doing so many different things, it's like, and you wonder why they're doing it. And then you realize, okay, like our drill instructors are putting us in these chaotic situations to make us think quick, think in situations to where, not in recruit training, our lives are going to depend on it, but they knew we were going to war. And now when you're in Iraq and it's like you're in those chaotic situations, you got to learn to slow down, and you got to learn to assess the situation and know what you need to do, not only to keep yourself alive, but to keep your guys alive as well.
And how many guys were in your unit every day?
So we had a squad. There's about 12 or 13 of us in a squad. Depends on if the corpsman came with us, but our platoon had about 40 Marines. And then our company, probably about 200 was in our company. And that our company was the one that was in Haditha, a town about 40,000 people. So we were constantly running patrols out of there, and then also we had a platoon that was mobile. We had a platoon that would rotate back and forth, doing guard duty, and then the other one would be doing patrols. So, but it was a lot of work, and being put in. The leadership was, our company commander, who's still serving today, is a leader that the Marine Corps needs to go up the system because he was just a phenomenal leader. And he worked us to death. But at the end of the day, like the unit that we relieved lost 14 Marines. We lost 23 Marines in our entire battalion, which is 3 companies, a weapons company. But the unit that relieved us didn't lose any casualties. So it's like we lost a lot of blood in Iraq, but the work that we did, saved lives for the next unit, and it started moving in the right direction.
I try to put myself, in those perspectives because, you've seen the movies, you've seen everything, but there's no movie, there's nothing that can truly compare to it than being in that situation. And it's crazy. And if you could, for viewers, how does it work with are you guys working with other branches? Are you side by side with Navy SEALs or military infantry? Like, you guys cross
Nope.
paths? How does that work?
It was just us Marines. Like we did have one Army guy. He was like psyops, like psychology or psychological operations, to mess with the enemy and stuff like that. But he was only there for very briefly, and of course the Marines, we have our Navy corpsmen. So, but that's all it was, which just it was a company of Marines in a town of 45,000. We were used to getting mortared every day, and it's you learn to love each other a lot more because but every time when we left the briefing room, like you look up on the wall right next to the door, and there's a whiteboard with the Marines in your company that that was wounded, their status, where they're at now. And then when you patrol and you go out one of the ECP, one of the checkpoints, then you see like a unexploded ordnance stuck halfway in the ground. It never exploded, but it's like you think after reading the sign, the whiteboard, and then seeing that, it's like you got to churn it on because you never know. It's like you never know when it's going to be your day. And being on patrol, being a point man, like there were so many close calls. And it's like looking back on it, you thank God that they're not really good at throwing IED, or they're not really good at throwing grenades. Their mortars were just not very far off from where they were supposed to be. So thank God their direction sucked. But it's like you just think back to a lot of those close calls, and
So how long between you first getting to Iraq and January 18th of 2000? How long were you in Iraq before the injury?
4.5 months, and it was almost to a point where we were kind of like getting to the point of finishing up the deployment. You start hearing the rumblings about the next unit bringing in their advanced party. And our deployment, like I mentioned, those first 3 months were pretty bad. Like it started slowing down a lot because of the work that we were doing there. We were really pushed out a lot of the insurgents, and the people in the town of Haditha was, getting back to their normal life, their normally day to day activities, and so like that was the work that we did over there, and it was. I remember on that day, I remember calling home right before we got, right before we had to go into the briefing because we were going to go on a patrol, and I called home and my uncle answered, and I was just kind of like, I only told him so much through a satellite phone, but it was just like, yeah, we're finished up the deployment, we're in talks about heading home here next probably month and a half, and it was I remember hanging the phone up and then going off to the brief, and then you know not a few hours later, my uncle got the phone call that I was coming home a lot sooner than expected, because I stepped on an IED.
So to the best of your ability and, however you're comfortable with sharing, can you explain to viewers what you do remember from January 18th and what happened that day and whatever you're comfortable with sharing?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was just it was just another patrol. It was we were going down a road. It was called Park Place. It laid parallel to the Euphrates River. And as a point man, you're always looking out for like items, suspicious items. Where can what window, what door, what corner, like where can somebody pull a weapon out and shoot at you? It's like you got your eyes on everything. And when you're in an area full of palm trees and called the palm groves, where a lot of vegetation is, and it's like, all right, you're used to seeing trees, you're used to seeing grass, and then I look out in front of me 30 yards off to the right, and I see a white bag leaned up against a tree. And to me, it's like that. Okay, that's a suspicious item, because this is also how they marked IED emplacements, where they dug their weapons. Like they
Just
use
for
these
viewers, quick, Matt, can you just tell viewers what is an IED?
like a bomb, improvised explosive device.
And
And
they live underground, they're buried?
yeah, they bury them. They pretty much put them anywhere that you know, as long as it has the most um, power behind it, because I mean, it could be in a coffee can with a bunch of nails, and then all of a sudden inside of it, you got like a little device that could be command or pushed in, and it's like it blows up right in front of you. So
Right, so
that was
now you see the white object leaning on the tree.
yeah. So I see that, and I turn around and let everybody know behind me, like, hey, be on alert, because I got the suspicious item up here. Like there's you don't know if it's going to be an ambush, you don't know if there's going to be an ID, or whatever. Just stay on alert, even more than normal. And the minute I turned back around, I looked down, and there was this ditch that laid perpendicular from the road I was on, that went inside of a pipe underneath the road. And as I looked down, I saw the command wires going right inside the ditch into that pipe. And by this time, there was no time to react at all. It exploded directly underneath me. And with it being in that pipe, that did a lot of the damage. Not only with the ID, the bomb on there as well. So sent shrapnel into both my eyes, and it also removed my left leg at the blast. My right leg was pretty much severely damaged, so bad that it was pretty much amputated as well.
So when this happens, were you the only one injured from this IED, or was some of your partners injured as well from it, the explosion?
my team leader to my left was injured. He had shrapnel go to his calf, and thankfully, like our squad was pretty spot on with how we patrolled. We dispersed really well. So, and also with that compound wall being right there next to it as well, it took a lot of the blast. And but yeah, so like it was only two of us that got hurt, and you know, unless they got a headache, that was probably about it. But it was the two of us that got the shrapnel.
So at that moment, are you conscious of what's going on? Are you out cold? Are you knocked out? What are you awake?
I was back and forth, in and out. Like the shrapnel went through my eyes, so like I lost my vision right away, but I could still hear what was going on. I heard my squad leader run up to me and calling for QRF, and it's amazing because then like after that, I was laying there. We got into so many firefights, and thankfully, every time that we went out in the town and got shot at or an ID exploded, like we always came back with the same amount of Marines, and until this, to where now we got both of us severely injured. And one of my closest friends like basically just sat next to me and held my hand as he waited on QRF, quick reaction force, to get there, because like I was out. I was done. Like there's no way I should have survived. And by this time I'm already passed out. I don't remember any of that. And then the last voice I remember, so they were I ended up hearing these stories through one of the corpsmen. We had an aid station that was probably the size of a closet, but when I got hurt, they actually cleared out the whole chow hall to put tables together so they could bring me in, because I needed every corpsman that could possibly take care of me. And they told one of the Marines, one of the platoon sergeants, that, hey, talk to him just so he could hear your voice. And I always share this because the funny thing, the Marine Corps is such a small world. And the Marine that was speaking to me was my senior drill instructor. And I remember going back to boot camp, recruit training, right before we graduated. He told us, he's like, once I'm done with you all, I'm off to Hawaii and you'll never see me again. And like, we're all like, okay, well, you're going to Hawaii. We're East Coast Marines. We're staying here in the East Coast. Like, we'll never see you again. And then maybe 2 weeks when he got to, when he got to Hawaii, we're already there. And I run into him as being one of his last recruits to run into him. And he was like, I was walking towards him. I see him coming my way, and I'm like, oh no. Like last time I saw this guy, he was yelling and screaming, and I keep on walking and I greet him, and they're like, all I hear is, "Hey, Bradford," and I turn around and he's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" I'm like, I do, and I just kept on walking, but he turned out to be down to earth, one of the coolest guys, and still one of my, you know, somebody I look up to today, because, you know, when I was when they told him to speak to me in 2007, the last words I heard was, "You'll be fine, Bradford." And then I don't remember anything else until I woke up 3 weeks later in a coma in Bethesda, or after a coma in Bethesda. And, those words from then on till now, "You'll be fine, Bradford," has been, my daily reminder, my daily motivation that when things get tough, at the end of the day, it's going to be fine. And always look to him for that guidance and that motivation.
So after you step on that IED, obviously you're going in and out of consciousness. So you have no idea what's injured on you. You know you
No,
can't see, but do you know the severity of what your injuries are like?
I didn't even. I mean, to me, it just felt like a nightmare. Like it just happened so fast, and like even losing vision, like it just felt like a nightmare, and like I didn't realize all that happened to me is until I woke up, 3 weeks later, and that's when I found out a lot about what happened, and even when I woke up 3 weeks later, I felt like, wow, I feel like it's only been 5 minutes since I was in Iraq, but really it's been 3 weeks, and it's to find out that I lost both my legs, I had shrapnel go through both my eyes. My right hand was severely damaged. My left forearm was shrapnel embedded in the bone that basically got nerves wrapped around it. That if they tried to remove the shrapnel, then my arm would have been fused, which was no use. I have abdominal problems. I had pieces of my small intestines. My bladder was ruptured. I lost a body's worth of blood. Like, there's no way that I walked away from that alive. And looking back, I think back to the corpsmen, the doctors, the nurses, everyone from then till the coma in Bethesda, they're then till the ICU in Bethesda. It's like all those people helped keep me alive. And looking down, that there was somebody up above looking down on me that day as well, and for the weeks that followed.
So that also brings us back to, early in the conversation when I asked you if you were religious growing up. Are you any more religious now after that event than
I
you
am.
were as a kid?
I am, and I learned a lot when I was in Iraq to, you know, I think the reason why I wasn't scared is because I knew that no matter what, there was somebody always looking down on me, looking down on us. You know, always think back to the times that I stood on those rooftops and like it was either the sunrise or the sunset and how beautiful it really was. Like, I always reminded myself that no matter what happens when we step outside those compound walls or what could go wrong, that the good Lord above is always looking down on us. He's painting us these beautiful skies. This canvas of beautiness. This is Him. Like He's always looking out for us, and no matter what, at the end of the day, like good is going to overcome evil. And I go through all my injuries and everything that happened to me, and again, 3 weeks later, although I didn't want to wake up that way, I woke up and I had people in my hospital room that prayed for me, that was there for me, that would show up when I needed somebody, when I was alone in my room, they showed up. And it's it's amazing to think that, in those darkest moments, He sent His angels in.
It truly is amazing, and I truly do believe that people were up there looking out for you and your, fellow Marines. And was this an induced coma, or did you go into your own coma?
It was induced, heavily sedated, induced coma. Yeah.
And it was for 3 weeks?
Yeah, because I had so like where the shrapnel went penetrated my eyes, like I got pieces of shrapnel in my head, and like I had a lot of brain swelling, and then also I had a tube put in my brain or in my head to kind of like release some of the swelling and the pressure because they didn't want me to have an aneurysm because I was still on alert, still trying to react and stuff, and body was trying to get used to all this stuff that's going on. So there was a lot of different moving parts going on. So they put me out.
So, I don't want this to be, a stupid question, but not everybody's been in a coma. Is there any like memory of waking up 3 weeks later from a coma? Like, is it just like waking up from, a morning of sleep and then you just awake? Or does it feel like you were gone for 3 weeks?
Honestly, like when I woke up, I felt like it was just yesterday. Like I didn't feel anything at all. And like even like I don't remember the first days because where I had a trach put in, like even when I was out of the coma, like I still couldn't talk because I had to get used to the trach in there, the trach being removed. So it was although I wasn't in ICU, they moved me up to the fifth floor. It was still kind of like, all right, I have to. My body's still getting used to what's going on.
And how many surgeries did you have total?
I have no clue. I
Can't
had a
even
lot. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, almost every day I was getting my legs done, like something done with my legs. From washouts to like removing, cleaning up, like you know, and then just from hand to my abdomen to my eyes to it was just everything. So and a lot of that did take place when I was in ICU, but I do know I think it was around the 1st of March of 2007 was the last surgery I've ever had. And so what 17 years I haven't had any surgeries.
And what what were they able to save? What was the conclusion with your eyes?
They they really couldn't. I mean, my right eye is my real eye. My left eye is a prosthetic eye. You know, there from what they said then that it would be very, a good probability that I won't see again for the rest of my life. But and that's just like during this all this stuff going on, like I didn't really care too much about losing my eyesight. I wanted my legs to be there. Like I wanted my legs to grow back. I didn't want to be the amputee. Like, honestly, I didn't even want to be a wounded warrior. I didn't. You see all this stuff on the news about these guys getting injured. Like, I didn't want that to be me. Like, as I mentioned earlier, like I either wanted to come home with my brothers or not come home at all. Like, I didn't want to go down this middle of the path road.
And for viewers, do you have any eyesight at all?
I do not. Nope.
So it's completely you lost both vision in both eyes.
I did. Yep. And even today, like 17 years later, like I'm sure there could be stuff out there, but I've just had no motivation to go, do any research about it because it'll come to me when it does. Like I just like I'm hopeful I'll see one day, but you know what? Until then, I'm going to keep living this life, and I've gone every to blind rehab training. I've done everything I could. It's my day to day life. It's not really. I mean, there's some things that I wish I could do with eyesight, but there's a lot of things that I can do, and I take advantage of it, and I've learned to use the training that I learned in the Marines about, slowing down. Life's chaotic. Like, I can't do things as fast when I can't see. So I got to learn to slow down and do it slow. So,
So you're in the hospital. Who breaks the news to you of what happened and the significance of your injuries?
so my dad told me that I lost both my legs. And that's when I broke down. I mean, as emotional as I've ever been in his arms, and that was a very tough day, and it was just and not only that, just finding out what happened to me took me down that road of depression and guilt. Like I didn't want to live, I didn't want to be there in that position. I wanted to be in Iraq, and it wasn't so much like losing my legs or losing my eyesight. It was just like I felt like I let the Marines down. I felt like I let them down because I should have found that ID. I should have done something, even though it was too late or it was impossible. But I felt like I let them down, and then knowing that my team leader to my left got injured as well, that hurt me more. And so it was just a lot of this stuff piled on me, and honestly, like the only thought in my life was to be a Marine for 20 years and deploy as many times as possible and retire. Like I didn't have a backup plan, and I certainly didn't think a backup plan was being a blind double amputee.
So when you woke up from the coma and you're speaking to your father, was the blindness instant or did that happen over time you lost your eyesight, or when you woke up from the coma you had no eyesight, or was that later on?
It was instant. It was yeah. I mean, I woke up and I mean, and I always joke around because it's like when I first got out of the coma, like, and before my dad even told me I lost my legs, like the phantom pains were so strong that I felt like I had my feet. And my dad would always come in and like, if his doctor was in there, they'd whisper, and I'm like, here I am. I feel like I'm blindfolded because I can't see my legs. Like I could still feel my feet, and I got people whispering over my shoulder, and all I could think is, oh gosh, I'm about to be on Al Jazeera. They're about to cut my head off or something. It's like I ended up getting captured.
So waking up and not being able to see, I mean, that's it's there's no words to describe that feeling. Did were you freaking out?
Mm, not really. I mean, I honestly can't remember back to what I was. Just that, you know, there's just a lot going on at that time that I was just trying to figure all this stuff out, and there's a lot of moving parts, and honestly, again, like I didn't, I had hope that I would see either through surgeries or something. I just wanted my legs to grow back. I just wanted my legs to be there. Like I didn't want to have to transfer over in a wheelchair to go use the restroom. I just wanted to hop out of the bed and walk over to it.
Right, so the biggest concern you had was your legs. That was to
Yeah,
you, that was everything.
exactly.
And how did your family take it? This whole, obviously not good, but was how did dad and mom and family react to seeing you like this?
Um, well, first them, my dad and mom being divorced, that put a whole different element in there too. So having to deal with that, but you mentioned like religion and stuff. My dad, I think, started going to the hospital chapel and started reading the Bible and stuff. So I think he really um, found Christ through all this. And my mom, she was mad at first, but I think at the end of the day, like they told anyone that came into my hospital room that wanted to see me or wanted to visit with me, like, yes, I look different, but be positive. Don't go in there and just get emotional. Just show him that you're here, that you care, and things are going to get better. And they brought that into my hospital room. And it was, but they warned them. Because I mean, I was banged up pretty good.
So when do you go home?
Oh, I did that. I was an inpatient for probably 5 months, two different hospitals, and then I didn't get a chance to go home until July 4th. Um, so I was like, the only way that a lot of people could come see me is if they drove up to Bethesda, or drove to Richmond, Virginia at the VA, and where I was an inpatient. So it's like I didn't get to go home until I was cleared in
So
San
when
Antonio.
so when you get home, and I asked this for a reason, what was your new life like being home? And the reason why I'm asking you this is, I've spoken to numerous veterans and you've touched on it a little bit in this conversation. I always ask them, is survivor's guilt a real thing? Is there ever a time where you wish you did not make it home, you wanted to die in Iraq with your brothers, and they all tell me the same thing, that it's a real thing, and some didn't like being the fact that they were the ones who survived. Did you have any battles with that, being survivor's guilt?
I do, and I think I still battle with that today. It's just something that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. And like even getting to go home, like I was still active duty, like, and that was the one thing, like we talked about earlier about being in the Marines, and like I mentioned earlier that I shared later on. It's like what kept me alive through all this was being a Marine, is having that title. And I told myself that I'm going to live a normal life. Like I'm going to do it differently. Like, I'm not going to be able to finish some things like you do, but at the end of the day, like I'm not going to quit and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to fight through this. Like I'm not fighting insurgents no more. I'm fighting these demons, these daily demons that are going to be on this shoulder, that's going to be trying to veer me off in the wrong direction because, there was two paths I could have chose. Like, yeah, it was the alcoholism, the drugs, the suicide, all this stuff. I could have went down that path, but that's not who I was, and that's not the person I am. So I chose the path of I'm going to live life to the fullest. Like I'm going to live a normal life. Like these injuries are not going to define who I am as a person. They're not going to slow me down. They're not going to restrict me on the way I want to live life. And having, those angels, those Marines, the family members, and all these people that kept coming to my hospital room, even when I didn't want them in there, they still kept coming in there. I told myself that this is what I want to do with life. Like I want to be in the Marines. I want to reenlist. Like, we talk about purpose and we talk about God looking down on us. It's like maybe that's why He gave me this second chance to live life. To go into a hospital room to share with someone who wants to give up, who wants to quit because they got injured, and let them know that no matter if you lost a leg, if you're burned, if you lost your eyesight, you could still live life. You know, and that's what I focused on. But like going home for the first time, like I was still a Marine, so like I had leave. I had to get approved by doctors. I had to get approved by the Marine Corps, and I went home for a week, and it was different. To be out in public, where people could see my amputations, to see where People had to push me around in a wheelchair because I wasn't on prosthetics then. It was tough, but I knew that the harder I work and the step by step will get me to where I wanted to go, which I wanted to re-enlist. I wanted to stay in the Marines. Like I wanted to keep wearing the uniform. And that drove me every day when I woke up.
Man, I'm just speechless from that, and it's truly, truly, truly. I couldn't be happier for you for that mindset. Was it always that mindset coming home, or was there a period to where you weren't that confident to live your life?
I mean, it was I had good days, I had bad days, and just trying to make sure that I didn't turn one bad day into two bad days, and I mean it was tough. Like, it was not only am I learning how to walk on two prosthetics, but I'm doing it with no eyesight, and learning to live this way. Like it was tough. But you know what? I had amazing people, from physical therapists to occupational therapists to the Marines, that like I had amazing people in my corner that were there for me no matter what, when I needed them the most. And I took every advice, every words of wisdom they shared with me, and I just carried all that through. But it was that drive that I wanted to stay in the Marines. Like I didn't want to get out. I didn't want to be a veteran. I wanted to do what I can by still wearing the uniform, because you know I've seen a lot of good friends that they were forced out because they were hurt. And like I felt like if that happened to me, then that would put me in a different situation, a different attitude than I had. Because I wanted to call it quits on my own. I didn't want to have to be forced out.
I completely understand. And do you have dreams about
I do.
Afghanistan and Iraq? Do you still get those dreams?
Um, I have dreams. Every now and then I'll have dreams of Iraq and stuff like that, but it's not nothing too severe. I mean,
Could you
I don't know.
could you close your eyes and put yourself back on that day and remember the weather, the smell? Do you still remember vividly, or is it such a distant memory that you don't really think about it as much?
I think about it every day. And I still remember it, a lot of it, and you know, it's as I mentioned, it's my motivation and my drive is not so much, why do I get up? It's because the life I live is for those guys that don't make it home. Like I wear a Kevlar when I ride on my hand cycle, when I get on a bike, or I do a Spartan race, and it's to honor those who can't wear that Kevlar no more. When I put my uniform on, it's to honor those Marines that it's a burden, but it's not that huge of a burden, because those guys paid the ultimate sacrifice. They gave everything, and it's our duty today, those who walked away from that country, to honor their legacy by remembering their stories, saying their names, and not forgetting that, because that they gave everything, and I'm going to honor them every time I put a Kevlar on, every time I wake up, every time I put my uniform on. It's just honoring those heroes who gave it all.
I love it. I love it, brother. Is there anything you wish civilians understood about military men and women that they might not understand? Is there anything that you wish civilians?
I think just that right there, that you got a lot of people in this country that they walk the streets, they walk through life, and they don't realize that the life that these streets that they walk and the lives they live come at a price. And it's less than 1% of us that are willing to put the uniform on, get deployed to a country and fight a war where we are losing our buddies. And it's not only so much that, it's like we're you know even once the war is over and the battle's long gone, we're still fighting that battle in our head. We're the ones coming home with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. We're the ones that are taking medications of depression and all this stuff every day. you know it, but why do we do it? Because we do it because of the person to our left and right. We love those people. We love the uniform, and we love this flag. you know
And
a lot of people.
I think that's what's a big problem in today's country is I think people really did forget the meaning behind that flag and what that flag represents. And I think, we've grown in this country of too much of an entitlement. And,
Hmm.
I don't think they realize how bad it is in other places that they think they have it so bad here. But they truly forgot that flag is your freedom.
I mean, you just to me, it's like you look at the what does that red symbolize on the flag, and it's the blood shed, and like you said, it's just and a lot of people are entitled in this country, and they just don't realize it, and they think we got it bad here. There's a lot of other countries around the world that have it way worse
Yeah,
than
and
we,
I tell everybody, I said, "Those people who served, they served for you to have that dumb opinion you just said.
exactly.
They
Yep.
served for you to sit here and say how bad this country is that you live in." That's
Oh,
why people lost their lives for you to say stupid shit like that.
I always love the people that are, oh, I'm moving out of this country. I'm gonna go live here because I don't like the way it's going. It's like, but you never see them go anywhere.
Nope, just like,
Like,
all the celebrities when Trump was coming in, "Oh, I'm moving to Canada."
yeah, exactly.
They're still here, never went to Canada.
No,
So
no,
so
it's,
view so viewers don't they might not know you are married and you do have kids.
I do. Yep. So I met my wife in 2010. We've been married for 12 years now, and then we got 3 kids. And
So you met your wife post-military career.
well, I was still in the military then, but I met her after I got hurt. So, because I
So
ended up
2010.
I ended up re-enlisted in 2010, April 7th, 2010. I was the first blind WMPT in the history of the Marine Corps to do that, and they assigned me. They asked me where I wanted to go, and I said Wounded Warrior Battalion, East Camp Lejeune, because I wanted to be around the guys and the girls that were hurt, that were dealing with injuries, and that's what I did for the next 2.5 years.
Does your wife and kids do you guys speak about your time in the military and what happened overseas? Do they realize how much of a badass their dad is? Or are you just dad?
Just dad, like, oh
Just
yeah, it's
dad.
I'm yeah, I'm just dad. But my wife and I talk about it a lot, and it's like, I mean, a lot of our friends are still in the military, they're military, and it's my wife, she basically, once she graduated high school, she grew up in the military lifestyle as well, and it's just and it just, I think, even with my injuries, I think it shows our kids that no matter what life throws your way, like, if you put in the work and you put in the effort, like, you could overcome any adversity. It's life's not over just because you might be a little different, or you might not do things the right way or the fast way, and through it all, that I've learned, because it's like just being kind to other people. We're all different, we're all fighting our own battles. We don't look the same, and just because we look different or act different doesn't mean that you should shy away and not interact, or because at the end of the day we all have a heart. So that's
And and this positive attitude that you developed and all these positive outlooks that, is truly amazing for someone that, has been through what you've been through and to have this outlook on life so positive. Do you credit that to Matthew Bradford the person or Matthew Bradford the Marine?
I
Or
look at
or both?
it, it's like, that ID took so much from me one day. Like, it took my life almost away from me. And, I was given a second chance to live life. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to impact, and live this life the right way, and it's like by serving others, and sharing my story, or just going out and living life, and inspiring and motivating others to live beyond the bare minimum, to live life to the fullest, because you only get one shot at it, you know.
And in your opinion, what could because we all know there's obviously an issue in this country with how veterans are treated, in my opinion, and I think it's, not a secret anymore. Is there anything you think could be done to better treat these veterans and get them the help they need? Are they doing all they can?
No, I mean, I wish they would, I wish they would focus some of the money that we're spending all around the world and put it towards veteran homelessness, veteran suicide, mental health. It's there's a lot that we could be doing right now, and it's sad that there's a lot of homeless veterans out there that are, fighting every day to survive. Either on the streets of these cities, or the demons in their heads. And Here we are throwing around so much money in places that don't need to be thrown around, and it's just like focus right here. Focus on the people who you know makes this country free.
Yeah.
That are willing to sacrifice their lives, but you're not willing to sacrifice a little money to take care of them.
And I think it's disgraceful that you have all, we all know what's going on at the border right now, and you let all these people in, give them housing, give them food, give them money, and you have the people who serve this country sleeping in the street,
Mm-hmm.
who don't have that equal opportunity, and you're treating people here illegally better than our own veterans in this country. And that's, a big reason why I started this podcast because I was so sick of seeing it. A little background on myself. I work in New York City, and I would see them daily in the street, and I would always speak to them. I would always talk, like to hear their story, and that's how I started this podcast. And the stories, it's so sad with these poor guys, man, and
Mm-hmm.
it's pathetic of how they're treated. I mean, I always say if you serve this country, you should be set for life in any way possible, and they just not paid attention to. And this country, like you said, is putting the money in the wrong resources. We're letting the wrong people in this country, and we need to take care of Americans first. There's Americans who need help.
I mean, no, it's I don't know. I'm pretty certain I know where a lot of your listeners follow, but it's like Trump said. It's like America first. Like focus on right here in this country. There's a lot of problems we got right here. Like, why do we need to worry about what other countries are doing? Like, let's
Yep.
focus on our own borders. And
And
it's like,
yeah, I agree.
and
And there's
it's you think about some of these politicians. The only times they really want like veteran support or veterans help is when they're running for a campaign. It's like, oh, now I support you, or now I'll take care of you. It's like, and then they win their race, and it's like they're never seen again.
no, and I agree. And it's no coincidence that when Trump was in the office, there was no wars. There was no,
Yeah.
there was no Ukraine and Russia. There was no, all the bullshit that's going on. But when Trump was here, things were quiet. And I always ask, military folks, who would you rather serve under? Somebody like Donald Trump or somebody like Biden who can't even finish a
Talk.
sentence?
Yeah.
And you want to take orders from him? Like that's
Mhm.
who you trust to be your leader?
I was in South Africa in September, October on a safari hunt, and South Africans, even those guys were like, they were laughing at Joe Biden,
It's
and it's like,
embarrassing.
yeah, it's like it's embarrassing that people see this around the world, and it's like, and even you talk about like everybody, oh, we hate him, we hate him, but you know what? You go outside this country and like those South Africans, they love Trump. And it's like, they, and you go to these other countries also, and it's like they want to come to America as much as they possibly can. We were we were in California, I think the 2019, and the taxi driver, he like throughout he's like, oh, so what do you think about Trump? And I'm like, oh
Oh
gosh.
god.
I'm like
Exactly what I just said.
I'm in California with my family. Like, I don't know, like, oh, I think he's doing but finds out this guy was a legal immigrant from Egypt that came here the right way 30 years ago. And he was just so mad at the border, just like, people wanting to let illegals in. He was like, I think Trump's doing a good, I think they need to build that wall, and it's just, it shows that people who fight so hard to get over here, it's like those are same as you mentioned earlier with the veterans. It's like these people fight so hard to get to this country, and then here you are, just it's easier to get into this country as it is to get out of it.
Right, and I think that's the misconception people have is, "Oh, Trump doesn't want nobody to come in this country," or it's not about that. It's about coming here the right way. You can't just go into Canada. You can't just walk into Russia. You can't walk into China. So what makes you think you should be able to walk in America and
Yeah, yeah.
risk another 9/11, or, like the poor girl Lincoln Riley who just got murdered by an
Hmm.
illegal person not even supposed to be in this country.
Yeah. and
You
and
know,
there's the reasons why, like Trump was trying to get these, like, there's reasons why these countries don't want these people back, because they're criminals there, but you're going to welcome them into our country. And You get look at these gangs now that are all over this country. You can't feel safe walking down big cities anymore. It's like
No,
it's a mess,
I'm from New
you know.
York City, and I
Yep.
wouldn't wish my worst enemy in New York City right now to walk those streets, and it's pathetic. And I also think it's a disgrace that you have Joe Biden who swaps an arms, dealer in Russia for Brittany
Oh yeah.
Griner, a basketball player, one of the most dangerous terrorists you had, and you trade him for a female basketball player. You think
Yep.
that's the smart route that the direction we're going in, but we could you know sit here and talk in circles about how pathetic this
Oh
is,
yeah.
and
I'm
you know
about to say, I gotta go get a drink right now if we're gonna start this conversation.
no, and usually, I always try to wrap it up on on a higher note. And what I always ask, what does the flag mean to you after serving, after everything you've been through, after just being an American? In your opinion, when you see that flag, what does the flag mean to you?
Um, it's I mean, it just means everything. Like it everything that it represents, everything that it symbolizes. You think of the history of that flag and this country. Yeah, I mean, we're not a perfect country. We're not perfect people, but it's everything that we've built over these last 245 years. It's like that flag represents freedom. It represents sacrifice, not only to us, but around the world. Like when other countries see that flag, they know that the Americans are here, and not to mention seeing that flag draped across caskets of those who are willing to sacrifice and give their lives. And, a lot of us don't agree on what we're fighting for, what the war we're fighting for, but we all agree on supporting and defending that flag, loving the person to your left and right that wears that flag on their chest. You know, it's why we stand up and why we defend that flag, no matter what it is. It's love. It's it's what this country should stand for. It's we don't need any other flags. We need just one flag, and that flag symbolizes everything this country is: unity, united. We stand, and just like the motto of Kentucky is united we stand, divided we fall. Like we as a country, we as a nation need to stand under one flag and support and defend it no matter what. Because there's a lot of evil people out there that want us to fail, want us to surrender and give up. But it's just that sacrifice that we have with those guys and girls who are willing to give everything for that flag in this country.
And I think what you just said, you could use in both terms. When you say what that flag stands for, you should always stand for the flag physically
Mhm.
also.
Yep. And it's a stand for the flag, and always just a lot of times when the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem's playing, is just close my eyes and just you talk about reflection. You talk about what all in that like 2 minute song or whatever, what that means to you, and
The
you
pride.
you asked me earlier like if I think about Iraq, and when I close my eyes, that's what I think about. I think about those interactions I had with friends that are no longer here today. The love that we shared, the brotherhood, and it's just it's America, and it's like I love this country no matter who's running it, some of the idiots that we have in this country, but at the end of the day, like this is the only place I want to live. This is where I want to raise my kids, and this is the country I love.
Absolutely, brother. I couldn't agree more. And we're gonna wrap it up with some fun, quick, rapid questions. You
All right,
ready?
I hope so.
Top five favorite war movies.
I like Black Hawk Down. I, the one that came out last year, Devotion, I really like that one. uh oh gosh, can I do like series?
Yeah, sure.
Like
Sure.
we just finished Masters of the Air. That's a really good one. The Pacific is a good one. Um, oh, well, you know what? Midway was a good one. Saving Private. I got yeah. I'm at six now, but Saving Private Ryan's the sixth one. Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan is good. What foods did you crave when you were overseas?
Oh, gosh,
Was there any specific cravings that you just were dying?
That's a hard one because when I was over there, I was 18, 19 years old in the Marines, and I was a kid still. Like pizzas and from Papa John's, like junk food, McDonald's, and then you get over there and it's MREs, Vienna sausages, and beanie weenie cans. So that's
Anything.
definitely yeah, pretty much anything. Then
Is Full Metal Jacket accurate?
I you know I don't think I've ever seen that movie from beginning to end. I always watch the boot camp and when he shoots himself in the bathroom. Like I just kind of turn it off. But I mean, you get yelled at a lot, and a lot of times those drill instructors will find one recruit and they will zone in on him. Like when I was in boot camp, there was one guy in there that he was in the army before, and when the drill instructors found that out, like they zoned in on him. I mean, you all get yelled at, but he was the one that they really piled on.
What are some fun things you and your friends did overseas? Was there any pranks? Any fun times that comes to your mind? Any
Uh,
moment?
we played a lot of PSP, the portable
Yeah,
PlayStation.
yeah, for
That was
sure.
big, but that was big back then. We kind of just we didn't really like it was just once we were in the fob, like we could take off. I always tell people, like, when we're in the fob and we're playing our PSP or joking around, listening to our music, like we were a bunch of 19-year-old kids. But when it was time to go on patrol, when put our gear on, we turned into like serious Marines on a combat mission. It was we were your Marines. We grappled, we wrestled with each other. We just a bunch of brothers stuck in our little room for long periods of time.
Tell the viewers, what do you have going on now in life? Where can people find you? What's your social medias? What is Matthew Bradford up to today?
Like right now, we're just kind of trying to get the kids through school. Got spring break next week. My social medias is like I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. No legs, no vision, no problem. Um, I think my Instagram is m_Bradford_USMC. And I got a website. It's www.matthew-bradford.com. But I do a lot of public speaking. I work for a nonprofit called Troops First Foundation, and we go out and talk about military suicide and resiliency. But if anyone needs a motivational speaker, you can email me at simplify at matthew-bradford.com. It's on my website. It's on my social medias as well. So it's just to get sharing my story and serving others. It's not just for the military, for veterans. It could be for anyone because we all deal with those issues and we all have problems. We're all facing something, and if my story can resurrect with someone, then that's what it takes. One person a day. If I could change one person's life, that's what it all matters, and that's why I'm blessed to be living here today.
And I'm gonna put all the description in the description. I'll put all your links, all your social media, all your websites, all your contact information. I'll set it down in the description. And this has been, a really, really, really strong episode. It's been a great learning experience listening to your story. I know it's probably not easy.
Oh no.
You are, you know, to me, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, 7 days a week, every single day, you're a hero, and you should really be proud of yourself for how far you've come, building a family and getting past, the other side of hell. I'll call it hell, from where you've come. And I really appreciate you being on here. It was an honor, and I'm gonna keep working on this podcast to make that change for the veterans. And I hope one day we could meet face to face, and it'd be my honor.
Yeah, definitely. I know where you live. Like, still have some friends, and just like I told you, I spoke up there at the CBA. Like, he's mentioned about wanting me to come back up there again. But actually, my physical therapist, he lives up around North Jersey as well. So it's there's a golf tournament that we do in the organization that I work with up in that area also. So if I'm ever in that area, I'll let you know. And I thank you for what you do on your podcast and supporting the veterans and stuff. And being using this platform the right way, and anything I could ever do to help out, always willing to jump back on here again with you.
Absolutely, brother. We'll definitely keep in touch. If you are in New Jersey, shoot me a text. I'll take you to the Trump golf course that we got over here.
Yeah, that's I think that's close to the one that we because our organization does like it does a fundraiser event there, and I just can't think of the name of the golf course. We were there just a couple years ago, actually.
Well,
But I'll
when you
definitely
shoot me a text, let me know what it is, and I will definitely be there.
will do. Yeah, thank you again.
Matthew, enjoy your day, brother. Thank you for coming on, man.
You do the same. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, brother.
All right, bye.
2 days past 18, he was waiting on a bus in his army green. Sat down in a booth in the cafe there, gave his order to a girl with a bow in her hair. He's a little shy, so she gave him a smile. He said, would you mind sitting down for a while and talking to me? I'm feeling pretty low. She said, I'm off in an hour.